Always a spelling mistake. The first message that I enter in. Hello, beautiful souls and awesome beings. We are live. We back again with Shem, Tartarian Truth. Awesome to have you.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Indeed, a pleasure. You were working hard all day and glad you were able to make it. And soon, hopefully, I will be doing the same, but working hard every day in the smoke, helping to move my mom, and soon having to move my storage stuff. I know how it goes. And
we'll try and keep it part-time if you can.
Exactly, right? The part-time life. Keep it balanced. That's what it's all about. And with my message earlier, that is what it's about, is balance, and that I just won't be doing streams every day, but I'll still have a few a week at least, and always the alchemy experiments at the very least. So quickly here before I let Shem take it away with all of his awesome research, I'm just gonna plug in the two silver coins that I have. They're both 99.99% pure silver. I believe they're both 2-ounce coins, so that's 4 ounces of total silver in there. Anode cathode, so you'll see the coin on the left start bubbling up a whole bunch of hydrogen, and the coin on the right will start producing a giant cloud of monoatomics.
Nice. Yeah, I found a bar of silver today. I should have got it out for this. It's just an ounce though, I mean, but it's free, better than nothing. Actually, I might as well just go get it real quick. I'll be right back.
All right, so I bail on Shem, and Shem bails on me, and he will be right back. So, he's already there. Oh, yeah, look, see, you got your silver bar. And the bars, I find, actually have better reactions than the silver or the circular coins. For some reason, the rectangular bars, I've found, it produces more monatomic breakdown on the cathode or the anode side. But yeah, anywho.
How much do these usually cost?
Well, it's like pure silver, pure gold. So ounce of silver is what, like 25 or something American? I'm not.
So do you usually buy it or just get it donated to you? Like, how are you doing the experiment?
These are actually inherited from my grandma. Rest in peace, Grandma Green. This is family silver that I got when she passed, and now you can start to see these bands of actual silver coming off on the top right of that coin and moving around below it. It'll just get more and more of it. Anywho, let's let Shem take it away with what he's got for us today.
Yeah, this is just some stuff I've been looking into. I'm still learning this as I go. It's just interesting stuff. So this is a paper by Michael Vogel. He's talking about the history of the Mongol influence in Russia, and specifically in this paper, they talk about Moscow mostly. So let's read a couple bits from this and then check out some maps maybe. So it says here at the top, the Mongols ruled Russia for 240 years during the 13th to 15th century. So that's the 1200s to the 1400s. One of the greatest effects of Mongol rule in Russia was the rise of Moscow. See, this is important because if you look up the history of Moscow, it says that it was basically like a smaller city during this time period until the Mongols got here and made it actually expand. So if you think about what we've talked about in the past with like the cities of Genghis Khan and stuff or not Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan and stuff like that, like what was happening during the 13th century, it's pretty impressive that they're actually responsible for Moscow growing into kind of the city that it is today. We were reading Marco Polo before.
That's a very good point. And they always try to act like it was the Western influence that, civilized Russia and Siberia and built Moscow, but it's probably the exact opposite. And that the Tartars, like especially like Peking and like all the ancient mega cities of the East Asia there, that if they brought it and built the like Moscow and all of the different like Dagestan, Chechnyas, all of the different Kremlins across the areas that the same sort of palace technology or systems that were of the east.
Yeah, I mean they had a lot of walled fortress cities like that in the east. What you're talking about, and well, the interesting thing about the Mongols though is that it was split into different sections in this time period. So we'll check out a map of that actually real quick because it kind of shows it a little bit better than I can explain it. So you can see up here in the top left and on the northwest of the map, it says Kiev and Rus and the Grand Duchy of Moscow. So when you look up the Grand Duchy of Moscow, it doesn't necessarily make it easy to find this out, but they do admit it that they were a vassal state of the Mongolian Empire or the Tartarian Empire or the Yuan dynasty of China. It's all the same thing. So basically what happened is this: once the Mongols invaded Russia, they made Moscow like pay tribute to them. They had paid taxes and they had to send basically a
Yeah, it
princess.
was a vassal state to them, and at that point acknowledging that their loyalty and allegiance and the power laid in the Far East, right? Not in Europe or in Rome.
Well, that's the thing is like each vassal state of the Mongolian Empire, they would have like the ruler of whichever place send one of their daughters to be the wife of the Khan. So you see the same thing with the story of Prester John, why he ended up getting destroyed by Genghis Khan, because Genghis Khan requested a wife of his daughter, and he said he would rather burn his daughter than give her to Genghis Khan. So Genghis Khan went and destroyed the city of Tinduk, apparently. So let's get back to this article real quick in relation to the Grand Duchy of Moscow. So down here on the bottom right, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse or not, but we're gonna in a second here. It says here, although Russia was to remain subject to another 100 years of Mongol rule, it was often a name only. That's not the right section. I'm sorry. Okay. So right, this is what I'm looking for. In his will of 1389, Dmitry beneath Vladimir to his son, I bless my son Prince Vasily with all my patronage of the Grand Principality. And it says here, the Khan is no longer who chooses the Grand Prince. So basically what they're saying here is after 1389, the Khan is no longer who chooses the Prince of the Grand Duchy of Moscow. So before this, apparently, whoever was ruling in Moscow was because the Khan of the Mongolians decided that. So I just find that fascinating because they don't really talk about it, but we'll check out Wikipedia
Absolutely.
just to show you what I'm talking about here. It does admit it was a vassal state to the Golden Horde, but what they don't say is that the Golden Horde was basically part of a federation of the entire Mongolian or Tartarian Empire, right?
Exactly. Where we're taught that there was nothing there, that it was just straight up uninhabited, like savages, right? That there was no organized civilization really, when indeed it was the power, the major power of the world, basically, or the old world.
Yeah, it was just a lot more advanced than what we say. For example, like in Marco Polo, the introduction to the Henry Yule version of Marco Polo kind of gives a lot of historical facts, and some people they say this is true, this is fake, but they admit in the introduction to the Henry Yule version that it's more than likely that the printing press was actually invented by the Tartars or the Yuan dynasty of China, and then Marco Polo brought back an example of this back to Venice with him, which led to the eventual invention of the printing press, which I find that shocking. And they also had taxes, like we were talking about before, paper money. They had vast canal systems. They had astrologers. They had a curfew system actually, where I think it was I don't know what the time was, but every night they would they would have these horns or something that they would do at a certain time, and no one was allowed to leave their house. So it's a very, very organized society, is the point I'm trying to make here. But let's get
and powerful, that everyone had to be paying tribute to them and stuff, and that the Western society's narrative is that there was no great organized world societies or world trade, and that there was no idea of what was going on in the East or anything. But in the East, they're like, no, our civilization is thousands upon thousands of years old, and the only thing we really attribute to China, or to the East, the Orient, and give to to China, is the gunpowder, of the fireworks and the cannons and rifles. But then it's like, obviously they would have been the ruling power with all of these technologies. And then also the Tartars and the Turks and the Ottoman Empire and the Turkish, which was the Tartars, and how they're all settled all throughout mid Asia, Central Asia, and whatnot to East Asia, and that was one and the same of like the essentially trying to say that it was like this Muslim Asiatic power that was mixed with the Caucasians through Russia and that area.
See, the Muslim thing is, I do agree that the religion is
Or not
very,
necessarily Muslim, but some of the Islamic or Arabic style.
I think it's more the similarity is just that they believed in one God. It was just a Semitic style religion, because from the research I've been doing, it's more than likely that these people originated from the Levant, right? But
yeah, so, and when I say that, I mean more so their cultures of their language, the written language, their spoken language, and like their values, beliefs, and the technology, and that there's the acknowledgement of the golden age of alchemy of Arabia, and that is one and the same with this Tartar civilization, essentially, of them, and that they had these basic electrical understanding and stuff like that, and the esoteric knowledge that it was kept, and that
that's where it gets
like,
even more interesting, though, because like, for example, you have the Qin dynasty, was basically what people say is the origin of the modern name for China, Qin, China, but they were the first ruling dynasty of China, and during that time period, they actually had, maybe I can find it during the stream and pull it up, but there was just technology that you would not believe. Like, for example, entire mechanical like orchestras that would apparently just vocalize like these.
Yeah, the automatons, like
and
analog robots and all of this stuff, right? Like
they even had a pinhole type of camera apparently back then, so they could look at the stars using a pinhole camera. So I'm not sure if they actually made photos with this or not, but
of course
the technology
they would have had to, because it's like the chemical alchem, and like their chemical understanding is the root of all of it, and the root of chemistry is electrical chemistry as well as biochem. But those are two rabbit holes that we currently have extremely classified and suppressed now, but the ancients also kept it that way, but had a vast, bigger, and better understanding of it than we do, especially with like energy and matter. And yeah, that's more for another day or later in the stream. But you're right, like the advancements of that technology and stuff, and yet we are told that there was nothing there and that they were these disorganized savages, but somehow this horde came and conquered all of the entire landmass of Eurasia a couple of times. But don't worry about that, and don't worry that all of the people speak the same languages throughout all of it. And like all of the advanced architecture seems to all be built from them as well, and the mega terraforming and all of that. Yeah, don't worry about any of that.
Yeah, it's really strange. It's really strange because that's where this whole Tartaria thing comes in, because some people say it's a psyop, where I think to a certain level it could be, but I'm not saying that the technology and stuff, or maybe the giants or all those aspects, I'm not saying that it's 100% fake. Obviously, it's impossible to tell, but what I am saying is when you look at the actual history of what is historically, according to mainstream history, the Tartars, it's just so astounding and unbelievable, the technology, the organization, everything about it. For example, this right here, the Xiongnu, they were the people who, during the foundation of China, I was saying earlier, you have the Qin dynasty, which was followed by the Han dynasty. So this Xiongnu were basically the Mongols of the Turkic peoples, who eventually would be called the Khans. So we're talking about the 3rd century BC here. These people are already organized into a federation, and they're already reaching from basically at one point Korea all the way over to Turkey. and even some people say into Ukraine. So this is
Exactly,
the same
100%.
exact people being organized in the same exact way all the way back in the 3rd century BC, according to mainstream history. So that's where it leads to my next point here. So this is from Anatoly Fomenko's Volume 5, and this is basically him talking about how theoretically he's saying that the Romanov dynasty were usurpers who made it seem like the Mongols were foreign invaders, when in reality, just like I was showing you in that map a second ago, they've always been a federation of multi-ethnic people throughout history. So we're just going to read a little bit of this here. So we're on the bottom left here where it says 1. I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but I'm just going to go ahead and read some of this. The Tartar and Mongol yoke was merely
When
a
you
period
highlight it, we can.
I don't think I can highlight it because it's on Library of Congress and they're very annoying.
Fair enough.
Yeah, see, I'm trying to highlight it. Nothing's happening. Sorry about that. So bottom left of the screen, if you want to read along, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. The Tartar and Mongol yoke was merely a period of military rule in Russia, which has never been conquered by any foreign force. The supreme ruler was the military leader known as the Khan or the Tsar. See, that's interesting because Tsar also means Caesar. We'll come back to that here in a second when we talk about the Ottoman Empire. Whereas the civilian rulers or the princes were in charge of the cities and provinces responsible for the collecting of tax. So once again, talking about tax collecting, that went to support the Russian army. We're going to the top here where it says 3. Ancient Russia can therefore be regarded as a unified state, the Great Mongolian Empire, which had a regular army of professional warriors, the Horde. There was also a civilian part with no regular army. See, this part right here is interesting to me because remember we were talking about the Phoenicians and the Carthaginians.
Local militias as well, it says. Like there was the Horde, and they have to call it the Horde, this horrible army, but like, no, that was their big policing army, essentially what America is today. And then there was, it said, the local civilian, which would be your militias or your police or your organized society, like law enforcement and National Guard, essentially.
To me, when it says there was a civilian part with no regular army, it reminds me when we were making that connection to the Phoenicians and the Carthaginians, they kind of had the same situation set up, right? So in the city of Carthage, they would never, ever, ever have any citizens of their city fight in the military. They had this basically, like, you could call it a federation, where they had their vassal states around were the only military that they had. So every time there was a war, the citizens of Carthage would never, ever go fight. And the Romans were also inspired by this at one point in history. So that's what I'm saying. It's strange how you have these same behaviors all throughout history from all these different civilizations that all appear to come from the Levant. So it's almost as if one family has been split, just kind of like what it says in the Bible, all around the world. So we're going to continue here at part 4. The Horde, or the militarized Russian Empire, existed between the 14th and the early 17th century. Its history with the notorious Great Strife, when the Russian czars of the Horde, the last one being Boris Godunov, were massacred in the course of the Civil War. The Horde, or the Imperial Army, was crushed by the opposition, or the pro-Western party. The throne was usurped by the radically new dynasty, the pro-Western Romanovs. So I'm sure many people know the Romanovs are definitely pro-Western because they're the same family as, for example, the royal family of the UK. I'm pretty sure that when the communists took over Russia, the Tsar actually sent a letter to his relative in the UK asking for help, which they didn't do because they all died, apparently. Obviously, we know that. All right, so this last section here, part 5, is really interesting as well. The new dynasty was in need of its new history, required as an ideological justification of its reign. After all, the Romanovs acted as usurpers insofar as the old history of Horde Russia was concerned. They needed to introduce a radically novel interpretation of the previous period in Russian history. One must admit that they managed to do it aptly enough. They distorted the entire history of Russia beyond recognition, keeping most of the actual facts intact. The history of the Horde of Russia, whose populace had been divided into civilians and professional warriors, the actual Horde, scrolling up to the top here, declared to have been the epoch of a foreign conquest. As a result, the Horde, or the Russian army, transformed into the host of foreign invaders from mysterious distant lands under the quills of Romanovian historians. So basically, he's just saying here that what we were looking at earlier, the Mongols or the Tartars were never foreign invaders. Ever since all of recorded history that we have, it seems like there's been a federation in place, or at least being worked towards. The reason that there's been civil wars throughout history where there was times where they weren't united in a federation is because the Mongols practice something called partible inheritance. When the leader passes away, instead of having one person take over, it's usually split between relatives, or more specifically, his sons, right? And you saw the same thing in the beginning of France, which is why France oftentimes fell apart, because they also had partible inheritance. So it's once again, you just see this weird behavior over and over again. So one last thing I want to read here from this book before we move on. It's right in the middle here. I know you can't see my mouse. Okay, so it just says that the Horde Russia, it is similar to the terms Russian Empire, Soviet Union, and Russian Federation in the sense that its populace has always been multinational. The Slavs has always coexisted with other ethnic groups. So there you have it. I mean,
even as they do today with Chechnya, Dagestan, and the different Islamic societies in the southeast of the country, as well as I believe they still have a decently large Orthodox Jewish population, as well as the
Jewish autonomous region, which is weird that they already had a Jewish state before Israel, but for some reason the Jews didn't want to go there. Have you ever heard of that region before? Let's look it up real quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, Khazaria.
No, it's
right?
actually called the Jewish Autonomous Region. It's our Oblast.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Khazaria was part of the Soviet Union. What you're talking about is modern day Russia, and you're 100% correct.
This existed before Israel. It was created as a safe haven for Jews, and now I guess there's barely any Jews living there.
They all went to Israel instead.
So 1928. Okay, so let's get back to another interesting connection between the Mongols. This is speculation, by the way, with this. None of this, I'm not saying any of this stuff is 100% true. This is all speculation. So when you look at this map again, you see something else that's suspicious in the Anatolian region. Down here, it says the Seljuks of Rum. Rum, when you look at what that actually means, it means Rome.
Rome, so right by Rome, no doubt.
Okay, so let's look this up real quick. The Sultanate of Rum. So this was another vassal state of the Mongolian Empire. What's interesting about this? This ended up becoming the Ottoman Empire, right? Another interesting thing about it is you see the double-headed eagle as their coat of arms, which is similar to the Holy Roman Empire and modern-day Russian coat of arms and Constantinople, all that good stuff. So,
yeah,
I don't know. They try and make it seem like they're separate people, but if you read the story of the Seljuks who were in charge of this place, they actually came from Eastern Asia. They said they were running away from the Mongolians before they founded this place, but then they ended up serving underneath them, right? And if you look at the history of where these Turkic peoples came from, it's the same area that they claim that these people ran away from. So are they actually running, or were they just doing natural expansion? I'm not sure, but I did.
Or were they just always there, trading there, partly there the whole time too, right? Could have been like it says mixed societies and whatnot. That could they have been there and like coexisting as a mixed society, and then all of a sudden we get this Roman Empire, and instead of like the Greeks were everywhere seafaring, before the Romans, the Celtics were, the Egyptians were, the Sumerians were, and instead we're just told ever since like Rome took over everything.
Yeah, it's really weird. I'm not really sure why they try and make everything seem so distant from each other, because a lot of these places were even trading and communicating more than they admit to. One last thing I want to show about this article, this is the one that we opened up with, was that it says here that the Tartars eventually were called the Cossacks. So we know about the genocide that took place, or alleged genocide of the Cossacks in modern Russia when the communists took over. So I just think it's interesting how they gave them a different term, but according to this guy, who's basically a mainstream historian, he's saying that the Tartars were called the Cossacks.
That right? So and
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Modern day Russia today, the Cossacks are part of the Muslim or Islamic population of the south, and they were always with ancient Russia. They were always like charged with keeping the southern borders of like the Russian Empire or states like safe and clean, but that they were always at peace with both the Orthodox Church and stuff, and I guess like the rest of the Turks until Rome, right? Because it's like at one point they were Turkish, and then all of a sudden they were turned on each other.
Yeah, well, there's a study that I just found, like I think either yesterday or the day before, that's talking about the origins of the Turkic peoples in relation to the Japanese, the Koreans, who are the other ones? The Tungusics and the Mongols. But we'll get into that in a second. Before we do that, I want to make it this is kind of a stretch here, but the other day when we were talking with Ancient Historia too, we were looking at this flag of Japan. Zoom in here if it lets me. It's on the bottom. It's on the bottom by the Tartarian flags. My computer is very terrible. There we go. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm not sure. This kind of looks like it could be
like the one on the far left right now. Is that Chinese or something? That's literally the Russia or the Donetsk Russian Ukrainian flag with the light blue on top, the darker blue in the middle, and red at the bottom. Oh, it also does have white at the bottom. Okay, see, I didn't see that before. And then the Russian flag today is white at the top, blue in the middle, red at the bottom. Almost identical.
Yeah, the modern flags are very boring. Not a huge fan of them. These older ones are pretty cool.
But yeah, the crescent moon on Japan, like that's Islamic.
That's the interesting thing about it. That's kind of what led me to this paper, because I was looking for a connection between the Ottoman Empire and Japan, because it says that Japan, and it's hard to find information about it, but at first it was telling me that they never communicated until like the 18th century, but I found another paper that talks about them communicating long before this. So I don't know for sure if this is the crescent moon on here. It kind of looks like it could be a banana too. What do you think?
I think it's definitely a crescent moon, and it has to do with why they then switched to a full moon afterwards.
But this flag, I can't find any information about it anywhere on the internet. When you look it up, it's supposed to be a naval flag of Japan, and it's supposed to be from 1783. So I looked this up. I can't find any information on it whatsoever. I just find it fascinating, but I'm going to show you real quick this connection between the Ottoman and Japan, because it says that they were communicating during this time period where this flag was. So were they partners? I don't know what their communication exactly was. This is from some random website called Muslim Inspires, so I'm not sure how reliable it is. It looks like it has an AI photo for the top of it, but it does say that they are communicating as early as 1430 in the 17th century, which is the 1600s. Talks about a letter being sent in the 1800s between them. And this, I clicked on this pic from Twitter that shows this letter, and nothing popped up. I haven't had the chance to look into it too much yet. But yeah, I just found that interesting. So this is what leads to this paper that I was talking about earlier. So we'll check this out, and then that's pretty much the end of the presentation. So this is basically a bunch of college professors and stuff and people from around the world working together. I think the main person's from Germany. Basically, they're trying to find the origin of the Trans-Eurasian languages, and they use the DNA and everything to connect it back to the Altai region in Asia, Mongolia, China, and also the Liao River Basin, a little bit to the west of that. So I haven't had a chance to really get much into this. I'm just now coming across this article, but I just think it's fascinating how it kind of talks about what we're talking about here. Like, you have these 5 different languages: the Turkic, Mongolian, Tungusic, Korean, and Japonic, all stemming from allegedly the same language at some point in time, and them all start coming from that same region and then spreading out. Some going west towards Turkey, the other ones going over to Japan, right? So I'll give a link to this so you can put it into the description for anyone who wants to read it. Like I said, I'm just now coming across it. I don't know that much about it, but I do know that they use DNA evidence from various people found in that region to tie them to the current populations in the areas that we're describing. So let's see if I can find a little snippet here. I don't remember where it was exactly.
Yeah, and that also makes me like question and bring up that they also say that the northern Inuit, well, what's in Canada we call North America, we call Inuit, but the northern indigenous folk of Siberia, their blood, the genetics testing now has come back that they're like who populated the majority of, I believe, northwestern America's indigenous population or something genetics. So
I
that could
definitely
be.
entertain that, because there's my buddy Elkman. We've looked at the book, I think, together too. He showed the book where they talked about the Mongols trading in North America as far as Ohio, and then down in Peru, and they had elephants with them and everything. So I definitely think that if they made it over there to trade, then they're more than likely going to be integrating with the population as well, if they aren't settling there and building some of the cities. That's kind of where this whole French connection ties into this eventually that I'm trying to work towards, but it's just so hard to get there. So this map I find interesting because I don't know what color this is because I'm colorblind, unfortunately, at the top right, but I've seen other versions of this map where it shows that this area up in northern Siberia is has Turkic languages. So if you remember
Yeah, it does
that
all
Frau,
say Turkic.
so it's like
Wow.
the Frau Moro map we were looking at where it has all those cities and those stuff and the stuff up there. This is talking about in the past where these languages were.
And
So
so
say
if Turkic was seafaring and they controlled the Ottoman Empire at that time was controlling the Suez Canal and like the Mediterranean down there as well. Like it shows for a few hundred years at the very least. And that was their population up here too. Like it, we really have to start exploring and like lining up the old maps where they have those cities and castles and stuff in the Siberian shit and like trying to find them, because what it looks like is that there could have been a massive huge war and destruction and annihilation genocide of an entire world history that we just has completely written out of history within the last couple hundred years.
I did find a version of that Frau Moro map where you can click on the cities that are on there, or even like the descriptions that are on there. And when you click on a city, for example, it'll give you a modern day estimation on Google Maps where the city would be today. Obviously, the major cities that we care about are the Kingdom of Tinduk. They say they have no information available for it, so they don't even give an option. But what you can do is some of the cities close by, they will give a location for, and you can kind of compare that and look to where you think Tinduk should be. So just one more thing to kind of tie this back to the whole Phoenician thing. So when you look at the Mongolian script, this is just Wikipedia, but still it does admit here that it comes from the Phoenician alphabet. So that kind of ties back into that whole thing of maybe the Turkic or Mongolian peoples coming from the Levant at some point in history. Keep in mind, in the Mongolian Empire, they actually did have control over the Levant and Syria. They went down into Israel. They tried to make their way down into Egypt. Some sources say they made it down to Egypt. Other sources say they were stopped by the Mamluks.
Many sources do show them controlling Egypt.
So it's just far more fascinating than we could ever imagine. And when you look at the mound culture all around the world, like for example, that Emperor Qin we were talking about earlier, the first people of the Chinese dynasty, that the tomb with the terracotta soldiers, right, with the mercury inside the tomb and everything. That's allegedly shows all the rivers of China using mercury, which is fascinating. Okay, so that's a burial mound, right? Just like you find in North America, just like you find all over the world, these burial mounds. And they don't let anyone go into the tomb to do DNA research on who the emperor actually was. So they just say he's some Chinese guy. You know what I'm saying? So it could be a Turkic guy. It could be another mummy with red hair, like some of the other mummies they found in that area. Who knows? But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I got for this stuff. Let me double check. But this is just another example of the Turkic languages real quick. You can see up here in Siberia once again. That's from Wikipedia.
right?
Yeah.
Like, look at that all the way through. And that whole purple area is literally where all the old Tartarian castles and cities and what society were. And it's that they're called Tartars, you know, like even today.
This is that article again. Sorry for bringing it back up, but one more thing. The Russian term Tsar, which literally means Caesar, was used for both Byzantine emperor and the Mongol Khan. So the Khans are calling themselves Tsars, apparently, according to this guy. And I'll give a link to that too. Maybe we can put them in the description, or I can just put it into a comment. And one last thing. So this is Mehmed II of the Ottoman Empire. Just want to really hammer it home that these people were calling themselves Caesar. If I'm spelling it correctly, which I'm probably not.
Yeah, you are. No, yeah. I can't see. I'm trying to save some Celtic maps currently, and man, are they fascinating.
There we go. I was spelling it right. It just took a minute to look.
Yeah, you were.
So it says Mehmed has assumed the title of Kaiser-i-Rum. So once again, the Sultanate of Rum, which we were talking about earlier, were the foundation of the Ottoman Empire. Roman Caesar. So the Ottomans saw themselves as the inheritors of the Roman Empire. They also had that double-headed eagle as their coat of arms, which was the same as the Holy Roman Empire. And obviously, if you look at mainstream history, what the Roman coat of arms is, it's just that one eagle with the piece of wood or whatever that has the SPQR. I can't remember what the letters are on the bottom off the top of my head. It doesn't have two heads. But yeah, just find that stuff fascinating. So if anyone has information they want to share it with me, that'd be awesome. I'm still looking into the stuff. Sorry, I don't have the answers or anything.
Both of those, no apology.
Something to look into.
It is, right? It's truly fascinating stuff, and like the deeper you look into it, the more just what the fuck it becomes, because nothing we're told is true. Yeah, it just blows my mind every time.
I guess one last thing I didn't sign into this, I'm sorry, but this makes a connection maybe between the Ottoman Empire and the Japanese population, like we were talking about before, because if you know anything about Islam and even Orthodox Christianity, the women do cover themselves. This is an article I found on JSTOR, which I finally signed up for because there's a lot of great sources on there, but it says covering one face, the histories of Japanese women from the Heian period to the Edo period, this in Japan. This book basically just talks about how women used to cover themselves. So I don't know. Obviously, that's a little bit of a stretch making the connection to Islam, but it's entirely possible, or at least a similar style religion, right?
Very true. What? That one says.
So yeah, I think that's actually it. So can move on to something else now if you like. Did you want to maybe check out that video of that pyramid in Egypt from Chuck?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. You could get your alchemy stuff together while that's playing, maybe.
Oh, did you say you already put it in private chat?
No, I'm about to. Sorry.
Oh. Perfect. Okay, there we go. Sorry, just loading a couple of the Ottoman Empire maps along with Celtic Empire maps.
Nachiketa, you're probably right. It could have nothing to do with religion at all, but it's just an interesting connection. Just in case, obviously, we're just grasping at straws here to try to prove our theory, but I don't know. It is what it is. That's why I say, I'm not saying it's true. It's just something to look into, something to talk about.
Exactly. Spitballing and open discussion, trying to figure out what's going on in the world. Or what was going on in the world. Oh, stupid thing. It was, you did an Instagram, gotcha. It's all about watching YouTube videos through Twitter so you don't have to watch the stupid ads.
I wish I could play it online, but my computer's so laggy. Got that
good.
YouTube Premium.
Oh yeah, that's right. You do. You tried sharing it. What did you give it to me?
I am going to enjoy making, just because this is lost history at its finest.
Yeah, this is a fascinating video.
This is the location of a pyramid we are talking about in Egypt today. Obviously, not much to be seen on Google Earth. It's about 4 miles south of Giza. And I have stated that I believe Egyptian pharaohs just came on some original structures, built around them, tried to attach their legacy to them, and that has been the story put out, that these Egyptians were the builders of these pyramids. And Egyptologists have continued that line of thinking. And is it a cover-up of true history? Is it just national pride trying to attach their culture to these prehistory structures? It's understandable to me, but I have never had any evidence of covering up history as far as the pyramids until today. Now, this is the site of a hugely important pyramid. Nothing here today to be seen, but I'm going to come back to this in just a second here. Here is a diagram done about 100 years ago when excavation was done on this huge shaft cut into the earth. And there is just a little bit to be found above ground. Let me just go over to a pic here. Now, 100, 200 years ago, before the sands of time and the government of Egypt covered this place up, this is what it looked like. And words to describe this are very unique. Parallelogram is one word used to describe this place. And this is what it looked like when it was still visible above sand. It looks unlike any real true pyramid, I guess you could say. Is this an original structure? Is this what they look like originally? Those are great questions to be asked. And in 1837, things were written about this, and it said that this pyramid, the structure, had been carried away to the town about a mile away for building purposes in that town about 200 years ago. He said this pyramid was carted away, and this is all that's left. But the flooring of this is made of massive pink granite blocks, 15 feet long, 8 feet high, weighing, I can only guesstimate how individually each of these weighs maybe as much as 100 tons. Can somebody who's an expert on granite blocks, 15 feet, 8 feet, 4 feet high, some 5 feet high, that is the stones that makes up the flooring. But the truly strange thing in this is this picture, and this is one of the strangest pictures I have seen from ancient Egypt. Here are those massive granite blocks that make up the flooring. I mean, good grief, but one of these granite blocks has a tub, it is described, or a sarcophagus cut right into it, finely polished. Here is the lid right by. Originally, people theorized this was sealed, and I don't even think this is a sarcophagus necessarily. What is this truly? Is it a gate, a symbolic gate to the underworld? Is Robert Temple has put out the theory that this is some sort of astronomical observatory clock dial of some sort, down in an open shaft, open to the sky.
Yeah, you'll never guess what they did to this pyramid, what it is right now.
One of the strangest things I have ever seen. A perfectly polished granite lid, a tub, as they say.
Yeah, sorry, I paused it for a sec. Some said that this pyramid was exploded or something, but really that's documented that they quarried it away and used it to build part of Cairo. Is that correct? What are you saying?
Yeah, they're saying it used to be a complete structure, then they carried it away to get to that point, and then after that, I think maybe the destruction, that picture he was showing earlier, maybe the destruction that whoever was describing, that's what they blew up. But I do think that he said it was a complete pyramid before this.
Yeah, and there's images like with Luke that he's shown, and some other maps we found of books, and like the Greek accounts of there being many more pyramids there just a couple thousand years ago, maybe even hundreds. Who knows?
Is pink granite good for anything like alchemically, or maybe
probably?
Because that's
yeah,
all this is pink granite.
It's
what you're looking at there is pink granite.
Yeah, that stuff probably has all sorts of like electromagnetic properties built into it from what they were actually using it in the pyramids for. Oh, and thank you, W. I just saw right now that you did a $5 super chat, and I missed that.
Brian Forrester has videos of him exploring this site because it's right now it's a military base apparently that you can't get into. I don't know.
Right? Yeah. So sorry. Oh, did you want to share yours for a second, or no?
No, that was from earlier.
Okay, we'll finish playing this for a minute.
Don't they have a lot of
cut in to a granite block? I don't think this is a sarcophagus, a symbolic sarcophagus cut into a massive granite block. Well, maybe. Now, this pyramid shaft was examined in 1904 and 1905 by the Italian archaeologist Alessandro Bersanti.
Something up in Bernie.
And he writes this about it, and this is really the only documentation we have of this impressive structure, and he was clearly awestruck. It says, "I hope that the best informed amongst the tourists will come to admire the monument. The pleasure they will experience during this trip is worth the 2 or 3 hours it will take.
Yeah,
At first, the immensity of the task undertaken by the Egyptians will not appear to them. It is only at the bottom of the stairway when they will walk upon the granite pavement that it will become obvious. It is not that anything in particular, when examined in details, is remarkable or out of the ordinary, but the general feeling is one of those one never forgets. The size and richness of the materials, the perfection of the cuts and joints, the peerless finish of the granite sarcophagus, the boldness of structure, and the sheer height of the walls, everything comes together to compose this so far unique ensemble. It is an awe-inspiring shock, and nowhere in the power and mastery of the old Egyptian architects so suddenly and strongly obvious as here," and he was awestruck. So why today? The tourist industry of Egypt, they want to bring people to these magnificent structures of ancient Egypt. How come this is closed, covered up? Because clearly this is not Egyptian. The only thing Egyptian about this is it appears today in the land that we call Egypt.
I wonder what he means by that.
What did this place look like originally? This is what we have today. And you can see the stones here, that I guess this would be the western side of the pyramid. And that is all we have left today. What did this look like originally? Well, we have a very unexpected source that gives us the real answer of what this looked like in its form, and it's in color, and it's Hollywood. Now here is a clip from Hollywood, Land of the Pharaohs, made in 1954. Nothing was done at this site for between like 1912 and 1954. The sands of time buried it, but it was used for a set
can you
of
pause
the
real
movie
quick,
Land of the Pharaohs, and here.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. Nachiketa, good luck doing that with the chisel.
Right.
That when we were talking about earlier with the Qin Dynasty and the Han Dynasty of China, apparently they had water-powered saws and stuff back then. I'm gonna try to find a.
Definitely too. Water-powered saws would be able to cut through that, and that's not even right? And water, if you get pressurized water at certain, that's like the strongest blasting you can do for stone. I also think a lot of the stones that were used in a lot of the pyramids were, especially the grander, better ones, were most likely geopolymer. Some of like, but then there's the whole bases, right? Like there are some of the actual quarries, but then it's, I've now questioned, are the quarries that they can't claim that the original stones were cut from and moved from, were they actually in fact just other locations of other pyramids that were destroyed or removed and like taken down and used for other buildings in the more recent times, and then they just claim that those were the quarries because they have the exact same stones in them, when in fact they could have all been geopolymer. But I'm
I think
just
you're onto
speculating
something.
on that, and much more investigation would have to be done to actually confirm that.
I think you're right, because there's this mound I was looking into called Shrum Mound. It seemed to appear out of nowhere, and now it's a protected site. But if you look at old maps of the same area, there's no mention of the mound being there. And around the mound, on both sides, everywhere in that area, there's a quarry now where they've taken away so much rock. And I don't know if that means
See?
that there used to be structures there that, or
It
some kind of.
seems to be. There's especially a shit ton of quarries right where it looks like old star forts would have been, and also where maps of old star forts are. And then with Luke, Ancient Historia, there, some of the first videos we did together, he was showing some of these Nubian style pyramids, but that were larger in size than the Great Pyramids, and that they were further up the Euphrates and stuff. And then me and Campbell and him went on Google Earth and looked right, found the location of where they are now, where the waterfall used to be, and then that's where they built the dam and covered the waterfalls up, and then they covered the two ancient cities that were below the waterfalls up. And then right where like one of the biggest pyramids was supposed to be is where there's currently a giant quarry.
Wow. Yeah, that stuff's crazy. And the area I'm talking about is the heartland of basically like the Adena mound builders and stuff like that, all around the Scioto River. And
yeah, it throughout North America, especially too, like because of all the ancient canal sites, and that the canal sites were in with the whatever the both the pyramids as well as the star fort sort of infrastructure go hand in hand, so that they have to like destroy any like too out of place architecture that was along those canals and stuff to try to claim them as modern day construction.
doesn't make any sense. It's interesting how the only footage of this place is he's showing it right now in this video. It's from a movie. Like there's no really other footage, I guess, available of this place. He's always showing like a 10-second clip or 5-second clip from a movie that they shot there about Egypt, apparently, like a Hollywood movie. It's weird.
Yeah,
But
right.
you can see how huge it is.
Exactly. This was filmed at that site, and then they've had it closed off ever since, and it's just so massive.
Well, Dean Eco said that Brian Forster paid to get in there, so I'm hoping that we can get a copy of that video.
Check that out.
Yeah, if you don't send it, I'll look into it. But yeah, let's finish the rest of this. It's a couple more minutes, I think.
Is just a clip of that. And I'll just slow this down in slow motion because it's only on here for about 5 seconds in its regular speed. But here you can see this massive shaft cut into the earth. And this was shown in a Hollywood movie. So we do get an idea of what this looked like. And I think that is absolutely fascinating. Now, here is the name of this place. What it is called today, the unfinished northern pyramid of Zawyet El-Aryan. And that is what it is called today. But the unfinished form, maybe the Egyptians, dynastic Egyptians, just didn't come along and cap this place or put their work on top of this original structure. I don't think these places were unfinished. In the views of Egyptologists, I think they were unfinished. So the word unfinished, and I'm going to be going over a few other pyramids that they call unfinished, that were clearly finished in their original form. Now, this looks just totally strange to me. It looks like something that is clearly not Egyptian. It reminds me of stuff Brian Forster shows in Peru, and he mentions the Atlantis word.
The guy on the right's
And I
looking
have
kind
no
of
problem
AI.
using the Atlantis word with really, really old ruins in Egypt, just because at the Temple of Edfu, the earliest Egyptians tell us clearly that the people who started their culture came from an island that was sunk in a great devastation. That's what the earliest Egyptians tell us. Should we believe the earliest Egyptians? I think we should. But this is so strange. And people have had access to this site in at least 50 years. This is where the cover-up starts. Going back to this video clip, here you see what it looked like 60 years ago, just south of Giza. This incredible shaft cut into the earth with a flooring of massive granite stones. Well, what do we have today? Why can't people access this? Why can't research be done on this incredible structure? Well, here it is today. This is a military compound, has been for at least 50 years. There is no access to this. You see here.
Again?
Can you guess where the shaft is before he tells you, based on that picture?
Maybe, but probably not.
Yeah,
I knew this already, but
it's because that's the whole point, because it's basically been completely covered up, but I think my head's blocking it. It's right where the top of my head is, basically in that fence.
Right? Just like there's also it's being stashed.
Well, yeah, he basically just shows how he basically just says how they filled it up with trash, I guess. Like they started storing trash down there, like inside
It's just disgusting that they
doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. But yeah, we can move on. Great video.
Oh, we'll play the last 2 minutes.
Go for it.
Out of respect for him. Good man.
R.I.P. Chuck.
Here is the view from the movie. This is the pyramid overlooking the Nile Delta. And why can't we get at this today? Well, here is the fenced-in shaft. Here is that open shaft. This is what it looks like today. Why can't research be done? Why can't we really, truly investigate this? Well, this is a trash compound, and that shaft has been turned into a giant garbage bin.
Jesus.
Well, thanks to Danico, I got...
That's the cover-up of the prehistory pyramid.
All right. I guess.
That's unbelievable.
And Danico gave the link for the Brian Forster one. It's like 10 minutes long, too. Do you want to watch that quick?
Yeah, let's check it out, mate. Hopefully it's the same site.
I believe it is.
If there's actually trash on there, that'd be crazy.
There's a whole bunch of trash in the second Sphinx that's on the Giza Plateau. The 2 videos of people that paid to go check it out. It's disgusting. It's just filled with like a layer. Oh, it's sad.
What is wrong with these people? Hidden Inca tour is only $6,000.
I wish I could afford, because I would go.
Hi, this is Brian Forster, and today we're exploring a site you probably have never heard of called Abu Rawash. And at this location is this amazing piece of granite stone that has a curve to it and also has obvious evidence of ancient machining marks, which you will see.
Yeah,
now, where its original location was in relation to Abu Rawash is not known, but it's one of the best examples of ancient linear machining technology that you could possibly see. Abu Rawash is not open to the general public, but if you get special permission, you can go and explore it. And it's a part of the ancient system of pyramids located in the general Giza Plateau area. Now, most people think that the Giza Plateau is simply where the three great pyramids are, but that's not true at all. Here you can see that the casing stone of this once pyramid was pink granite, likely from Aswan, which is hundreds of miles away. And here you see the darkening of the inner core of the limestone. That apparently is intense heat. So it's another example of a location where an ancient pyramid was struck by an enormous amount of heat, likely around 12,000 years ago. And we also see evidence there. You see on the left-hand side of that pink material, that is the mortar that connected the casing stone to the limestone core. This is an example of granite. Again, it looks like it has been hit by an intense amount of heat, and that is a recent revelation by our team as we explored Egypt in April of 2019. There again, in the center, you could see the darkening of the limestone, which apparently was done by heat. Now, the major question regarding Abu Rawash, which obviously was a pyramid.
I don't think this is the same spot, but it's definitely interesting. It's still got the pink granite.
Nico was saying there's two deconstructed pyramids at this site, so this is the first one, and there's like another one, the other one's behind it or something.
Did they say that all the casing stones for the Great Pyramid are completely gone, or are there some in a museum?
That's a good question.
Because there's a Manly P. Hall lecture where he talks about there being 3 casing stones left in this time period during the lecture. He says that there were 3 left from the Great Pyramid, and when I look into it, I can't find really any information about it. But I also don't look into Egypt that often, so
that's fascinating.
Could be common knowledge.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that for sure. Should we continue with this, or
we could probably skip ahead a little bit, maybe see if it.
Okay, yeah. See if the other one. Oh yeah, look, there's the shaft.
Nice.
I think that's the shaft.
Well, if it's not, let's still check it out. It could be something cool.
I think this is I think that's the shaft coming up.
SCG had a video on 3 casing stones. SGD, who's that?
Were energetic or vibrational structures,
geometry decoded,
which in some way exploded around 12,000 years ago. Clearly, these were not ancient tombs. And again, the unique thing about Abu Rawash is this is the descending passageway into what was a pyramid. Again, look at the charring marks on the left and right-hand sides. And here we are descending into the core of this ancient pyramidal structure. Once again, you see the charred marks of the stone, probably not a localized fire, but something far more extensive. And it's at other locations in Egypt, such as Karnak, that again, we see these strange high heat scorching marks. Now, this is the interior of the descending passageway. You can see it's a combination of limestone blocks and then also the bedrock itself. Now, this site is not open to the general public, as I said, but if you get special permission and a proper licensed guide, then you're allowed to visit it. It's not an easy process, quite complex, and I personally have only been here twice. But again, it's quite probable that you've never heard of Abu Rawash, but you can look it up on the internet and see the description of what most academics think it was.
Blocks are huge. Bricks.
Now you're looking at the actual core of the pyramid structure itself. And as you can see, mainly
this one's filled
it's
with
the
trash
bedrock
too.
itself. So
How
the
recent
major
was this
question is,
video?
how was the bedrock cut in order to achieve this very deep shaft-like area? Obviously, it wasn't hand tools, and
Granite
as many of you
box.
understand now, a structure like this was not built by the dynastic Egyptians, but was inherited by them, and later on probably used as a quarry, possibly by the Romans or another culture. And that is the shaft itself. There is a taper to it. It's actually wider at the top than at the bottom, which is quite curious. And here we are back outside again. You can see that the pink granite was the casing stone locking into the limestone. And again, we see evidence of ancient scorching or charring marks on the surface.
Anti-trash dumpster.
And there again is the mortar material. It looks like a mixture of the pink granite and also the limestone. Some people speculate that it's a kind of geopolymer, but scientific testing will have to be done in a laboratory in North America at some point in order to analyze the material and see if it's simply ground up granite and limestone or if it's more complex.
Why did they fill it with trash?
Now here you can see that the weathering is very excessive in some areas. Once again, evidence of scorching. There is the pinkish mortar once again. There's a lot of this mortar used. Actually,
Sorry about that. What we're saying?
Okay. These places look, I don't know, they just look so sanitized.
They really do.
Do you know if they have markings on the bricks, kind of like how they do in the city of Ur, for example, or some like Phoenician architecture, or the ziggurats found in Babylon?
Good question, right? It looks like it's all been covered up and can't even see it. Either destroyed from either a cataclysm, a war, or like human destruction, or was intentionally scrapped and taken apart to be built elsewhere. But whatever way, they made sure that it was, like you said, desanitized.
Grid Earth had a massive meltdown everywhere.
Like there should be hieroglyphics on it, like all the other places, but why aren't there?
I don't know. Egypt is very sketchy to me. I just don't.
It is.
I used to when I was younger. I enjoyed looking into it, but nowadays I don't know. Something's very off about it to me.
Yeah, it's used as like the Egyptology. It's enforced that, it's indoctrination in the archaeological minds of the masses, and yet there's just so much evidence that what they're teaching is exactly wrong and that it's all BS, and that they have to like enforce those lies in Egypt at the sites and whatnot. Meanwhile, there's like way grander sites that are still buried beneath the sand dunes, or like you said, used as military sites, testing grounds. Let's blow it up. Let's make sure nobody ever gets to see it.
Yeah, and just the fact that they don't let people look into it. You have to be like a knight or something stupid just to even be able to like actually do any research. You have to be pre-approved by these groups. You know what I'm saying? It's just everything about it is sketchy.
Yeah,
clearly they're trying to keep something secret. For example, if you find a mound on your property in the United States, you're not allowed to dig into it or do anything with it. It's a federal offense. There was a law that was created in the 1990s to supposedly protect Native American culture. But when you see places like this, or if they want to build a shopping mall or something, they have no problem tearing down the mound. But just for you to take like a little sample of it, just to do a little bit of research into it, it's a federal offense. It just doesn't make any sense.
Just don't want you finding those elongated skulls or the giants or the gold or whatever the heck's in there.
I was shocked that the other day the Smithsonian website actually provided a document, and I didn't even know they actually gave things out to people like that. It was about, I think it was about the Ottoman Empire. I was looking something up, and there's like a PDF,
Really?
and I was just blown away. I was like, oh, the Smithsonian's actually useful for once, not keeping it behind closed doors where you have to go down in person.
That, huh?
Shout out to them for that. But I do still send them emails from time to time and shame them.
Right. Now, I guess we should just start asking them for things instead of like telling them how evil they are, because they already know that clearly.
Many pharmaceutical companies are built on mound sites in Ohio and Indiana. Interesting.
Really?
Yeah, by where I live, there are tons of undocumented mounds, and they're building like apartments and factories. Like I think an Amazon was recently put up around here, and you can see that they fence off the entire area when there's like an actual mound in the area. But when there's no mounds or anything, there's no fence. But if there is a mound, you have to like go through security to get into the construction zone. I saw one on the way home today. I thought about sneaking in there at nighttime and checking it out a little bit. But there's this apartment place I always clean for, and on the way home, every single time I leave there, it's on the west side of the street. On my way home, there's a giant mound that has no documentation whatsoever. And then a little bit further, like maybe like a mile and a half away from there, there's a huge mound that is documented, but there's barely any information about it.
That is, you definitely should do it. Take a GoPro and a flashlight and live stream the whole thing.
Someone said something about a simulacrum. Oh, it says Silurians.
Silurians. But before you go, I did get the Celtic map of a couple thousand, so 400 BC, so like what, 2,500 years ago. Look at how it goes all the way into Anatolia there. And they're like, oh, only in the Black Sea didn't control all of this. But it's pretty interesting that it goes all throughout there. But that's just a small one. There is also ones that says a bit bigger where it went all the way down into the Greeks. Oops. Oh, what am I doing? Wrong way. Sorry. Right, so here, these were all types of Celts and then the Greek states and colonies. So it was like Celts and then the Greeks. And that together, they essentially controlled the exact same as what the Romans did or the Ottomans did in between. And here's another one of the Celts from 2400.
Yeah, the Romans weren't big fans of the Celts. They basically exterminated them in order to expand into the Roman Empire.
No, they took over the entire area that was them. And then right here's another one. And this one, it says it's like a 1500s map, so only 500 years ago. So that I find very strange. And it gives them all of North Africa. I believe it was actually where it says that. Let's document it. Don't take my word for it. Let's find it. Here we go.
The mound site was a location that they allegedly found.
Kaboom, right here. Celtic Europe by Abraham Ortelius, 1595.
Is it saying this is in 1595 or that the map
I guess
was
it was made in
in
1595, but well, he says it was this entire area, so fascinating.
What year is he saying this was in though? Like, I guess would be the good question, because that would kind of tie into the idea that I guess the people from the Levant, or maybe like if you want to call them Turkic or Tartars or something like that, could have potentially influenced the foundation of some of these places.
Oh, it says 1595. I will have to send you the link and let you.
Yeah, I'll look into that. See what's going on. If that's from 1590, if he's saying that the Celts ruled in 1595,
Right?
that's shocking. But I doubt that's what
I
he's saying.
doubt it. I kidding. Yeah, it's couldn't be. Now where's the Ottoman Empire ones? Come on.
This seems interesting.
Oh, share this tab instead. Arab from Turkey. This is like Korea and Japan mapped out in Turkish. Strange. Pretty nice.
The Crusades. That's another thing about that Fomenko book, is that he says that the people who were doing the Crusades thought they were actually fighting the people who killed Jesus. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around that one. I've been reading it again. There's so much information in there, but when I read that, it just really stood out to me. He's saying that's why he thinks that there was added history, because he believes that the people who were doing the Crusades actually thought they were fighting the actual people who crucified Jesus.
Huh. That's fast. That's strange. Right? Like,
I don't know what to think about it.
There's just so much. There's every time it's a different rabbit hole. Where's the right one? I guess I'll have to get more find my hard drive for next time for what I'm trying to find with all of the different maps, and showing that they're essentially the exact same. It alternates back and forth, this control of the Mediterranean, Europe, as well as the Red Sea, I guess, yeah, which is debatable whether there was some form of Suez Canal before all of modern day or something, and was it controlled by, was it like a world shipping site essentially the entire time? And why is it that the Celts, the Romans, the Greeks, and then the Ottomans, and then the Persians, and as well as the Egyptians were all alternating, controlling all of the exact same areas over and over again, and just like alternating by only like 50 years each time, sort of thing? It's really strange and fascinating. But here you can kind of see it right there. Sorry, continue, Shell.
I was going to say, did you hear about that experiment that they did where they made a replica of a Phoenician ship and sailed to America?
I have, like, the Reed ship, right?
Yeah, saying that it was possible 2,000 years ago for the Phoenicians to come to America. I don't know. I just think it's interesting, and they even posted it on the United Nations website.
Yeah, I remember. So I don't know if I remember when was that one?
I think it was in 20. Let's see.
Because I remember one of them that it was like a reed boat or something. I'm not sure if it was like the Egyptians, maybe it was the Phoenicians, or maybe they've done it with a few of the different cultures now. Regardless, it's that the entire world was basically traveling around throughout and trading with each other throughout all of history. So this is like one of the Ottoman empires, and at one point they're saying it controlled all the way to Caspian Sea and little Tartarian, Crimea there, and pretty much all North Africa, all of Greece and Hungary throughout there, and then all through the Red Sea and all through Iraq and the rivers along there, which it's a lot. It's basically, that's one half, and then the other half was the Celts, and that's the entire world. And if the Ottomans were the Tartars and the Celts were also related to the Tartars. Well, right there, you've got everything under one world system all at once, not that long ago.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I wish there was a better name to use than Tartar for what we're talking about, but
right.
I feel like it just distorts it so much. But basically,
It does.
people who stem from that same region, the Altai Mountain region, yeah. EBT brought up the Fomenko
The
says Alexius
Phoenicians.
Comnenus says Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's interesting that he says that because that's
Oh,
right
thank
before.
you, John. Stop.
That's right before basically like the foundation of the Mongolian Empire and stuff like that. Because he was in like the 1100s, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that there's weird things about Fomenko's book too. Like there's one section where he says the entire reason that he's doing it is for people to basically come to their own conclusions and do their own research into stuff. But then later in the same exact volume, he like gets mad at people who are using it and saying that he didn't give permission for people to use it or something. So when I read stuff like that, it just really throws me off because he's contradicting himself within the same exact volume of the book, right? But
yeah, there's a lot of that with Fomenko, right?
This is that thing I was talking about. So the replica 2,000-year-old boat makes landfall in Florida after a 6,000-mile journey across the. They said they were picking up trash when they were doing it, which is pretty hilarious. But yeah, this is basically a Phoenician boat that they reconstructed. 2019, they traveled 6,000 miles from Tunisia, which is basically where the city of Carthage that I was talking about earlier, the Carthaginians, which are the Phoenicians.
Yeah.
So they traveled from Carthage to Florida. So it's basically just saying it was possible for the Phoenicians to make it to America. And I know people have said things about finding Phoenician artifacts in America or inscriptions on rocks and stuff like that. So I just think it's fascinating that how advanced the Phoenicians were. Exactly. They obviously had trading, they had taxes, they had all that stuff. They were basically the inventors of the royal purple, which has been seen all throughout history, even to modern day. The Catholic Church recently made their official colors purple and red. Like it's always been a status of like this group, I guess, is where I'm going with that. But yeah, you want to get into some alchemy before we call it quits?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, I was gonna just go through some more. Oh, I gotta load it first. Other old world photos or old map photos.
30 cents of fertilizer missing in California. Seems like all world civilization made Phoenician like boats. Exactly, D. Nico. Even the galleys of Venice, like the galleys of Venice, the boats that the Khans were using to invade Japan. All those are just two examples of.
Right, and also Lake Titicaca, they're the exact same ones too. Up top of the old, what they were claiming Aztec or Mayan or Olmec or something, but they're almost identical to the Sumerian, Egyptian, Phoenician boats.
Would like to know all of the contradictions about Fomenko if you guys are willing to get into that. Maybe,
right,
dude. Maybe one day. It's just such a long read to get through the book. It's hard to keep track of stuff. You'd have to like write it down as you go. But that was just one thing that really stood out to me. The one I brought up earlier because it just really bothered me when it said that. I guess it just made me think like, is this legit? Is this something that I should be trusting? Because it was just, I don't know. It was like he was having a dialogue instead of just presenting information, if that makes sense. Because
like he's kind of debating it and theorizing as opposed to being so sure of himself or sure of it, right?
No, he was getting mad because he was saying at the beginning of the book that the entire reason was for people to use his research and come to their own conclusions, and anyone can use it. But then later on in the same volume, which is volume 1, he says like certain people were using his information and he didn't approve of it and didn't give them permission.
Oh, really?
I was like,
okay,
which one is it?
That's very hypocritical, definitely.
Yeah, so that just rubbed me the wrong way when but
right, like no, that's kind of funny actually. Let's see. Can we see? Say you can kind of see a really giant cloud now from like there to there that is all of the monoatomic silver, and then there's like it's different like more condensed speckled pieces down there. And then I'm gonna try to plug in jar next to it quickly with copper and make some monoatomic copper as well.
Exactly, ABT. Just like he was getting mad in his book, though, like getting mad in a book that you're writing. Does that make sense?
Right? Yeah, I feel you. Just like starting to sound a wee bit crazy, arguing with yourself and the readers that you're not even talking with yet. Although I guess he would be like talking to his critics at like the Russian Academy or the Soviet Academy of Sciences and stuff at the time. Potentially. Maybe that's what it was.
I forget who it was, but yeah, I'd have to look into it again.
Pretty funny though, all in all.
It's default negative dungeon programming.
Oh my god, I forgot about the giant moth that I let into my house yesterday. Now I can hear it again. It's stuck somewhere.
Yeah, the water looks way different than when you started earlier, because I saw it right when you plugged it in earlier.
Right, yeah, it was clear then, and now it's done with white. Let's see if I can get a better angle of it. Kind of see right there, there's like a giant cluster and then kind of a clear space and then a whole giant cluster above.
So is this purifying the silver, basically?
Yeah, well, it's breaking the silver down from the like metallic solid third state silver into the white powdered monoatomic form that a lot of people claim like is a kind of like quantum matter or like a plasma state matter. So it's like this higher dimensional matter when you activate it. It's a series all on its own, but it's quite fascinating when you read into the legends of monoatomic gold and what seems to be all like the demigods of old were obsessed with it and making it and eating it and consuming it.
Have you ever heard of Cleopatra the Alchemist?
No. Cleopatra, yes. The alchemy aspect, no.
It's an entirely different person, but she apparently
Really
was like a profound alchemist in history, and she has a couple of documents that survive to this day. And I guess like one, she is basically talking about how to make, I think, what you're describing, the purified gold or the monotonic gold. I don't really know much about alchemy. Like I said, I'm just now looking into some of this stuff. But yeah, there's apparently an alchemist named Cleopatra the Alchemist who's like, I guess she's allegedly one of the greatest alchemists of all time.
Right, it's just every time it's just more and more rabbit holes.
Yeah, you should look into her. Might be able to help if you
100%.
understand the symbols and
I've
stuff.
read so many different ancient alchemist work describing on making this palpable, edible gold, and like that so many of them warn of, and like this also I need to warn everybody out there, like, one, I'm using 100% pure silver and pure gold when I'm making the monoatomics that I claim to be of that element. So it's very expensive. And number two, that if the stuff turns into a different chemical compound other than the actual gold itself, like an oxide or a hydroxide or anything like that, it then actually becomes instantly toxic and poisonous, and you've then just spent the price of gold or your silver and turned it into literal nothing, like dust that is worthless to you because it's oxidized and poisonous. although there is a manner of bringing it back into solid form, and we're going to be doing a stream figuring out how to do that pretty soon.
So with that whole Glenn T. Seaborg thing, you remember the guy that I showed you who actually turned the base metal into gold? Do you think that was just a way of them discrediting it so people would never try it since they claim it was so expensive to do? Or what do you think about all that?
Oh, I think 100% it was legit, and that there's been several different methods and ways and alchemical discovery ways through cold fusion of doing it in both the ancient times and the modern times. And that guy was probably 100% right on how to do it. And it was probably too expensive of a process, his way of doing it. I don't doubt that at all, because when doing it with chemicals and stuff, it is a very tedious and expensive process of having to continually wash and rinse the acids out, and repeating doing it and stuff like that, it would cost a fortune to be doing it, and possibly quite toxic on the regular with the materials. Is this working now?
Monoatomic jewelry.
But the point being that the way that I'm doing here, it's a lot less energy expensive and chemical expensive, because it's all in salt water with just a small amount of electricity, and you only have to do it once, not several times over and over again. And that I just need some better funding for equipment to get myself power supply, a couple of variacs, and a signal generator, at which point I'm pretty sure I will be able to figure out how to transmutate the metals for in the solid form from one element to another. And it gets into Sir Isaac Newton's alchemy that I've been deciphering and working on and going over a whole lot over the years.
Shout out Isaac Newton. He did a chronology thing too.
He did, right? So we should actually do a series on that. We'll do a Fomenko series, and we'll do an Isaac Newton series, because the chronological, it's grouped in with the alchemical, that it was anything to do with time, religion, philosophy, or alchemy were all suppressed. And then all of those writings have now recently been released and starting to be translated, and they're actually freaking fascinating.
The only documents I've been able to find from that Cleopatra, the Alchemist, are in French so far.
Okay, so we will have to get that translated and look at them in another day episode as well. And here you can already see this, that the second jar that I've plugged in, before it was all darkish material, and now it's half clearing at the top with monoatomic copper, and then pushing the dirty resin water to the bottom. But yeah, I'll leave them running for overnight and do another stream tomorrow, I guess. And
so what do you do once you get that done? What's the end goal of
it? The end goal with the white monoatomics is to consistently, once it precipitates enough at the bottom and collects into about a centimeter towards an inch worth of the monoatomic material at the base, then essentially looks like that. And then I take it out and harvest it and use it for currently doing tests with the agriculture. Again, I just planted all of my seeds, where this year we're going to be testing the monoatomic gold, the monoatomic the purple mono or di. I'm not sure the actual chemical combination, but it's purple, gold, and silver. So it's the elements in their purple state. It's a combination of them. And then in the pure white state, as well as the blue oxidized state. I'm going to also try and see if the oxidized particles are actually harmful towards the plants, as I suspect they are, as they are harmful to the diatomic oxidized metals. And what's most fascinating for me with all of this is that Isaac Newton described that turning any metal into these 7 different colored transmutational states of metals, and that finally you can get it into this pink crystalline state of metal, which I've done several times, where it actually starts to like shimmer and glisten and reflect light off of it, and that metals can be transmutated from one metal to another metal element when they're in that state. And I would like to start experimenting with that. And then he also states that all metals can be broken down into their pure white monoatomic state, which I have been doing and have done with, I think, over like 15 different metals now, and that I've gotten each metal into these red states, these green states, these white states, the yellow sulfur state, and that there definitely was a higher science of it that has been completely wiped out of modern understanding, and that it potentially is this cold fusion missing link that also gets into biochemistry, that's also electric chemistry, that is also the hydrogen energy as well. And hydrogen fuel and hydrogen energy is the future, and it's a lot simpler than what they let on. And it could have been what we see as the steampunk past. All the steam technology could have, in fact, been a type of hydrogen technology.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I don't know much about it, so I can't really comment on it, but it's interesting.
Right, exactly. So now you can start seeing this cloud of monoatomic copper that's forming here a bit. It's like wavy and stuff. And I just always find this stuff so fascinating as it grows and moves and stuff. It's like it forms these clouds, and it's like it's a plasma. So then it's like, are the clouds above us all plasma? And then it also, a lot of the time, it'll like grow different like tubes, these little nanotubes and stuff, and like stalagmites and stalactite and all sorts of different weird structures that form off of the metals. And they self-organize, and they basically come alive when there's a little bit of electricity going through it. And that just fascinates the fuck out of me every time.
Yeah, that stalagmite stalactite thing is very interesting. Don't breathe that stuff, little brother. Does it have your blood inside?
So the one on the right, I put, it was like a jar that I had a little bit of blood in a couple days ago, and I meant to hook up and like do a thing on, and then I was just too tired and left it, and then it's all died. Like it just turned into this like black nastiness over the last 2 days in the salt water, and all the blood cells died. And I was just seeing if it would have any reaction, testing it out, and literally none. Usually it'll start foaming and bubbling up and start producing the mRNA and or DNA and amino acids on the cathode side with the hydrogen. And it did not at all on this one. And instead, it's just going to push it down to the base of it. And what I believe it will probably do, and actually I think I can show an example of what it's done before with this, is it actually
The resurrection.
You see here, it pushes it all down to there, and it like kept it there, and then it built a layer that like separates of monoatomics that separated the dead blood cells from the rest of the jar and the structure.
Wait, so that's a lot of blood. Is that did it
water,
just like
it's only a couple of drops.
Okay.
But it just went in all the water. So here's what's crazy is this one of blood water. I made and sealed 6 years ago now, and it has stayed in perfect blood condition and never died. And it was because I somehow mixed it with the atomic gold and hydrogen.
Wow.
And I find it fascinating.
So because it hasn't caked up on the bottom, that's why you're saying it hasn't died?
I have no idea, but like it bonded. It seemed to, instead of like all foaming out or instead pushing it all down or whatever, it's just like bonded with the gold and stayed in the water, never condensed and never like changed color. And usually even if you seal blood, it will die and turn into like this darker color, where this one has been going for sealed the same for years.
Someone says, what is the aim besides an exercise in grossness? What are your comments on that?
It's for real science, just randomly experimenting stuff, like a little bit of electricity and your own DNA can replicate your own DNA out of salt water is fascinating. And so, well, one thing though, one ultimate goal with the Keshe Foundation, they teach that, with their coils, you get their coils, but then these ones aren't nano-coated, but normally they're nano-coated where they go black on the outside. And then once you nano-coat it, you're breaking down the outer bonds of the copper so that it can interact with this single monoatomic materials. And that when you have both your amino acids, which are your cellular resonant cells, your DNA, your resonant frequency of your biology, mixed with the monoatomic material that you're putting on it, that when you then plug these coils in and create an energy field with it, it's actually an energy field that's theoretically and should be on the same frequency wavelengths as your own bio signature and cellular wavelengths.
Wow, that's amazing. Have you ever tried that before, or are you still getting there?
I'm still so I do it with so when I put a little bit of the live DNA in with like blood and whatnot in with the monoatomics, that then I rinse out 9 times, rinse the salt, rinse the blood out, and it just the monoatomic material with a little bit of the amino acid left at the bottom and make the colloidal waters out of, and then drink those waters. It theoretically then is also bonding with the colloidal elements and the same bio signature biofrequency as my cells, so it should be working better. And like I never got any jabs. I was exposed to the virus like 50 times, never caught it once. In the 8 years now that I've been drinking the waters, I've only gotten sick 3 times, and each time was when I actually ate a little bit of the monoatomics instead of just drinking the waters. And it's that it's so powerful, it crashed my immune system each time. And it's like I got like super energetic, super like photographic memory and stuff for like a couple of days. And then immediately after, like I went to sleep, crashed, and then I woke up with like a basic cold or flu or whatever the heck all 3 times. And it's like, I imagine if you kept consuming the stuff, it would keep adding to the abilities or the effects. But then, who can afford to continuously eat pure gold.
Yeah, you have to be rich. Someone said BurnEye Fett, cracked me up. BurnEye creating a clone army. BurnEye
Right?
Fett.
Yeah, exactly. No, a homunculus clone army. That's what got me so. And it's like I had like shown off the. Oh my god! It's like the homunculus kind of verifies that you can make clones out of it, but at the same time, it's like I'm definitely not jacking into a jar. And then it's like the monoatomics, and especially like the freaking self-organized tubes and stuff, and like almost. Yeah, no, I haven't done that. Not gonna do that. Someone else could do it, but no, have not tried it. And whatever is in my jars, I promise it is not that. But it's the couple times that like I put like live blood into the reaction and stuff, it kind of like clumps together and then starts growing, and like a couple times it formed like these worm or like dragon like things that like were going around. It was so strange. So strange.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see that live sometime.
Or then it's like if you I have plenty, just I'm not at that point yet. And no, like yeah, I gonna need a little bit more of a lab before I try cloning myself in some jars in my basement. But yeah. All right.
Yeah, the fact that the blood in that bottle has lasted 6 years without clumping up, and it looks like it's all just like solid liquid, with
right?
no
Like looks
clumps of
like
anything.
cranberry juice still.
Yeah,
it's like
that's
what
impressive.
the fuck?
I don't know
It
what it
is,
means,
right?
but it's fascinating. Blood remedy is super effective.
Yeah, and it's so like the ancient alchemists collecting the essence or the alcohol or the spirit of these plants or animals, stuff like that. It's like they were just getting like the drugs, the different like chemicals and stuff without from the plants as remedies, but also who knows when it goes further with like the witches, their cauldrons, taking like some genetic material of this animal, some genetic material of that animal, you're brewing it together with, and they had copper spoons and iron cauldrons. The iron cauldron with the copper spoon and a little bit of salt in that water is your like alchemical chemical nuclear reactor. And that just the heat going in, and if they connected that spoon to like a wire that then touched the cauldron, there would be a actual current differential in it. That literally these could be all sorts of like higher dimensional technological spells. Who knows? It's crazy. Like if it's actually real, the possibilities are messed up. Just spitballing there, but there seems
I think it's real. There's a deliberate
to
effort to destroy the books that had a lot of alchemical formulas in it. Like all throughout history, you hear time and time again of these books that used to exist that are completely gone, that were filled with alchemical work. You know what I mean? So, and a lot of sources talk about magic, which could easily be assumed to be some sort of scientific thing along the lines of alchemy or whatever else. So it's definitely possible. There's a reason they cover it up.
I couldn't agree more. Oh, see, now you can start seeing at the very base of the jar there, it's starting to clump up towards the front, this white amount there, right at the bottom. So that's what the monoatomics look like as it collects. Oh, weird. Now it's gone completely dark all the way to the top of the second jar again.
That's the blood one, right?
Yeah, the dead blood.
Right.
Yeah, it's dead blood. Dead blood. Living blood does way cooler things. But I'll leave it plugged in, see what it does for a day. Oh, thank you so much for the donation, Scott Ross. And thank you, everybody who has donated and supported tonight. John Sup, $2. Again, bless you both. Thank you, and thank you all for your support and generosity. And yeah, so there's all sorts of different end goals with doing these random experiments and, you know, alchemical stuff. And it's just for the sake of science, and hopefully it turns into something
Tesla
more one
was an
day.
alien.
Yeah, just not quite ready to have a clone of myself or an alien clone or like a half clone, right? Because what happens if you don't get the process completely right on the homunculus, and then like they already look pretty effed up, like from all the images of homunculi. Like it's not a normal clone or anything by any means. And then if you like fuck it up even more, like God. Do you want a zombie vampire burning homunculus running around? I don't.
Could be interesting, I guess.
Not yet, at least. Right? I'm more like that Weird Science or whatever the fuck the movie is. Let's create the clone girlfriend first. Clone 100 Ambers.
Trying to find this.
All right. Well, on that note, I guess shit, it's 1 a.m. here, so it's 3 a.m. where you are. So I guess I will let you go. But John Sup, yes, definitely. Question before we go. Did you type a question? Did you mean to type a question because you super chatted a couple times? What is your question, good sir?
$5 for a question.
Well, he's done, and you can ask a question without paying, but sure. Well, so here's the thing. It's all plasma, and all plasma, I believe, has consciousness. And Joseph P. Farrell and Walter Bosley actually had an excellent stream discussing plasma and consciousness earlier today. And what was really strange is every time I was typing in the live chat, plasma with consciousness, those two words together, YouTube would censor my comments. It was fucked up. It's like they don't want plasma and consciousness, the understanding that they're, you know, one and the same, I guess. I don't know. And John, sup, what was your question? I'm sorry I missed it if there was one. Does anyone have any questions? Go sub to this dude. Okay, I will. There we go.
Have you seen this book before? Some creepy stuff.
Which one is it? The Cows and the Bees?
Bees.
A little, I think so. It's like got some fucked up shit in it, doesn't it? Like the processes. It's so weird. It's
except
I really hope it's allegorical descriptions of like beating the dead dog's dick or something like that.
It doesn't really make too much sense. The version with the picture might help a little bit more, but this is the only version I could find. Someone sent this to me to help me find it. But yeah, it talks about weird stuff like I just highlighted a second ago. It's talking about like the blood of a cat and some semen. Pretty gross, weird stuff.
Right? Like
ancient alchemy.
But at the same time, you know, like there could be something, there's potentially could be something to it.
If you want to convert the form of a man into the form of a monkey or a pig or any other form among the beasts. So it talks about turning a man into a monkey. Yeah. So this is apparently the alchemical formula to do that.
Whoa.
The heart of a black dog.
Go subscribe to Shem.
No. Well, yeah, it was a good time. Appreciate you having me. Thanks for the chat.
Always a pleasure, brother. I appreciate it too. And thank you. And one last time, everybody do go over and at Tartarian Truth. If you're looking for Shem, his new channel is youtube.com/@Tartarian Truth. And on that note, we will let you get to sleep because you were working all day. And I'll do another update, I guess, tomorrow with how that stuff grows and goes. And Thank you, everyone, for being here. And
Peace
catch
out,
you
everyone.
all
Have a good night.
on that one.